My name is Skill Johnson, presently living in Haleiwa, Hawaii, and formerly from Ocean City, Maryland. Moved to Hawaii in 1974. A little earlier in '63, in May, my brother was just finishing up his first year of college in West Texas, and my older brother Carl went to pick him up with his buddy, and they went to see my uncle out in Culver City, California. And of course, one of the coolest things in California back in the early '60s was Malibu Beach. Well, Carl and Al, my older brothers, went to Malibu Beach and they checked out the surfing, and that's where my oldest brother Carl really got interested in surfing, and he said that was it. They went to go rent surfboards, and Carl ended up buying a surfer magazine because the surf shop was closed. Well, upon getting back to Ocean City, Maryland, Carl got right into the surfing scene real quick. Right there in the summer of '63. Little we know it, but in September of '63, Carl's looking in the magazine and he saw that there was a little ad in there by this surf shop up in Harrington, Delaware, called the Eastern Surfer. He says, "Al, look at this. There's a surf shop in Delaware. Let's go check it out." So they called him up, and by the end of September of '63, we drove up there. Bill Wise was working in the post office. It was 3:30. I think the post office closes at 4. And he closed up the post office and said, "Let's go, boys. We're going to my house. That's where my surf shop is." So we went down to Bill's house, and that's where we first met Bill Wise in the September of '63. Pulling into his house up there in Harrington, Delaware. It was the first time I ever seen a surfboard. It was really cool. Of course, Bill Wise's partner was George Pittman, and he was down in Greenwood, Delaware, working at the time. Well, in that first year of '63, you know, the winter was getting cold, so the Wise and Pittman decided that they were going to open up a surf shop in Ocean City, Maryland. And it was going to be the first surf shop, and it was. There was other surf shops that opened up in Ocean City, I believe in '64. But the Eastern Surfer came on his own, and they ended up going to 18th Street under the Sandy Hill Motel. And that was the hotel that was owned by the Mumford family. And Jeff Mumford was a year behind me in school. And actually, Jeff was one of my first friends up in Ocean City, Maryland. And so Jeff Mumford and his next door neighbor who owned the Ocean Park Motel was Bob Church. These two guys are about the same age, and that became the Ocean City's first surfing beach. So the Eastern Surfer opened in the cellar, kind of up on the oceanfront part of 18th Street in 1964. I remember Bill and George telling me that they wouldn't let Bill have the Hobie franchise because there was another Hobie franchise so close, Virginia Beach. But little did the people on the West Coast know that we were separated by the Chesapeake Bay. The Surfmobile, 1964. Well, you know, everybody always talked about the Woodies. Well, the Woodies were cool, but there weren't too many around the Eastern Shore. Our first surf vehicle was our parents' car, of course, and that was a 1963 Dodge Dart. And my brother, the engineer, graphic designer, designed these surf racks. He made out of 2x4s, and he had them tied onto the side, but the top one had giant bolts with wing nuts on it. And sure enough, we were going to Indian River surfing one day, and all of a sudden we heard this whoomph. And here goes these 3 surfboards. We looked in the rear view mirror, and I was looking out the back window. They made me sit in the back seat. And these surfboards were flying up into the ceiling. That was a '63 Dodge Dart. It was really cool. On the other hand, my older brother Carl, before we drove to California, he had to get the Chevy van. The vans were the ultimate surf cars back then because the Woodies weren't around. We had a '66 Chevy van. Actually, we got it and had 400 miles on it before we left for California. I ended up getting that from my brother in 1968. Of course, the ultimate surf vehicle was owned by Bill Wise and George Pittman, and they called it the Surfer Express. My friend Bill Wise, man, he's the guy that had the camera. He's the only guy that took the surf photos. In fact, before I even got to meet Bill, he was taking surf photos by himself. He'd go down to Ocean City surfing by himself, and what he would do, he'd look at someone along the beach and say, "Hey, excuse me, would you mind taking a picture of me?" That's when he first got his first surf photos, was photos of him surfing down in Ocean City and up in Delaware. Usually he went surfing in South Bethany. He would get strangers along the beach to take pictures of him. I remember that Bill also had a water housing, and I'm not sure if he made his water housing himself, but he first used the water housing in the summer of '64 during the 4th of July weekend when the whole Hobie team and the whole crew with Phil Edwards, Joyce Hoffman, Mike Henson, Robert August, and the crew all came to Ocean City, Maryland for the premiere showing in Ocean City, which is the second place on the East Coast of the Endless Summer in 1964. So Bill Wise went paddling out with these guys, did a surf exhibition. Bill went down to the city council and got permission that we could have the beach closed off and have this special event. I'd like to really thank Ocean City, Maryland for being surfer friendly all these years. Bill got into the photography thing and he started getting bigger lenses. Believe it or not, his first camera was a little Brownie camera. That's what he told me he first started using. Then he got the water housing for the Brownie camera. I think he made it himself, but then he started getting into the bigger cameras. I think he had a Yoshika or maybe a Nikon and bigger lenses. I think he started with a 135 and ended up with a 300 lens. Bill was always a unique guy. He always had to talk. He could talk about the surfing history of Ocean City. Of course, he was the #1 guy along with his partner, George Pittman. And his first article he wrote for the Surfer magazine was Delaware, Where's That? One of the biggest things he did was get together with the Delaware legislator and get the Indian River Inlet as a permanent surf break for the state of Delaware. Indian River Inlet became a state park designated to surfers, not only for Delaware, but as a public park for the whole world. And I really appreciate Bill Wise doing that. One time he wanted me to get in his wheelchair down by his Likewise bikini shop at Somerset Street and said, just go up there and ride around in the wheelchair and I'll take pictures of you. Well, you know, here's this tan guy with blonde hair, and I went up on the boardwalk and Bill Wise was sitting there in his vehicle, and because he actually could drive back then too. He had the whole vehicle set up so he could push and pull on these hand knobs, and he would drive his children all the way to Ocean City. Well, I got up on the boardwalk and I was sitting there, people looking at me, and I'd start making like I'm all kind of crazy and shit. And I go over, and one time I took the wheelchair and I got over next to the edge and I fell off 3 feet into the curb and down into the street below. And these people all came over looking, and they go, "Are you okay?" I go, "Yeah, I'm okay." And I stood back up and got back up in my wheelchair and rolled away. And Bill Wise just thought that was the funniest thing he's ever seen. One other very inspirational thing about Bill Wise was his family. Bill had 4 children. His oldest son, Ben Wise, and then there was Todd, and then his daughter, Christy, who actually was, Rosie was pregnant with Christy when Bill got his accident. His daughter, Christy, had never seen Bill walk. And then the grandchildren, and Bill Wise was really a fortunate person to have all these loved ones around him all the 42 years after his accident. The inspiration that these kids showed him and for the love was just absolutely fantastic. The other child is Eric Wise. He works in computers up on the other side of the bay. Ben Wise is in charge of Pintail Point, where they have the hunting reserve up in Chestertown. And Todd Wise was in the Likewise construction, doing houses and all kinds of stuff. But his daughter's married to a plumber. Yeah, I like that. Anyway, the inspiration that came from Bill Wise's children was just absolutely fantastic, and the grandchildren. Bill Wise, we love you, buddy. Aloha.